Okay, am I too one-sided in my focus on relationships because it's from a male-only point of view?
Because it happens to women too.
Okay, let's discuss. The simple fact is men need to, want to, and should have every right to have sober discussions away from women. And I want you to think about the word sober. Women do it all the time when they get together for their coffees and girls' nights out. Guys will talk about relationships between men and women as a conceptual plural, but women will, when they're in the conversation talking about women, they're really talking about herself as Karen and trying to extrapolate everything out of that and trying to understand everything about the discussion between men and women from the point of view of how Karen feels, who happens to be a woman. Generally speaking, including a woman into an objective discussion between men about the mechanics of relationships will turn it into a subjective discussion about the woman who happens to be in the room or in the discussion. It won't be a discussion about men and women and relationships. It'll be about Karen who's in the room and how she feels and how men are editing themselves so she doesn't feel bad. And women conveniently always love acting coy as though they don't realize the power they have over men. When women enter a room, they take all the objectivity out of the room. Let's be honest, women play coy at this, but when a woman walks into a room, her carnal, biological power anesthetizes men. Women just take all the sober oxygen out of the room because self-referentially, compared to men, women make it personal, make it subjective, make it all about themselves. And men, because of the way they see women, they're happy to make it all about women. They want the discussion to be about how this particular woman in this discussion is feeling, what her thoughts are, what happened to her, how her anecdote explains all the theories about men and women because it happened to her or didn't happen to her. Men are anesthetized by women. Women are men's alcohol and men are alcoholics. Women know this, but they pretend to be coy. They put on a short skirt and low-cut top and prance around and coyly say, I don't know why men are looking at me and coming on to me, poking the bear of men's desire toward them, but acting all innocent. Men are recovering alcoholics and women are the alcohol. So there's no point women saying, oh, why don't you include us in your conversation? Oh, it happens to women as well. Men are essentially in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, talking amongst other men in a circle about the male experience and their point of view. And women are a bottle of scotch trying to enter the room saying, hey, what about me? It happens to us too. We don't need that bottle in the room. So just hold that as a reference point, ladies. In the same way that women went nuts over a rock star, over the Beatles, over the Rolling Stones, over some movie star idol, they faint. In a similar way, although not so heightened perhaps, men hold women at a low to high level celebrity status in their emotions, in their feelings. So as soon as a woman walks into the room, it's over. He's drunk on the woman. And women talk about relationships all the time. And men aren't insecure that they'll say, oh, what about me? I want to be involved in that conversation. We don't get it, but they have every right to do it. But somehow we're not allowed to. And I'll tell you why. And look, it's fine for men and women to discuss, but I don't get all these comments in the comment section where it's like, oh, human, it happens to women too. Why don't you discuss the women's only point of view? It's because it's discussed ad nauseum in the media and everywhere. The politically correct point of view is to talk about these things from a female sympathetic point of view. It happens to women too. It's her saying, I want to be part of the conversation. I want to be involved. They're not just saying, include me in the conversation. I want to be part of it. They're saying, I want to approve of your discussion. I want to approve that you guys are talking about relationships correctly. Let's not forget that. You're not talking about them personally, but they take it personally. Most women are so self-referential that they cannot separate themselves from talking about other human beings and men and women as a concept. And generally speaking, they're so self-referential that everything is personal. Men can discuss the mechanics of relationships in the same way they discuss the mechanics of fluid dynamics. They want to work it out. from a structural point of view by which they can calibrate themselves and then imbue their personal experience, what happened to them, what they learnt, and what they can do personally, subjectively going forward. Until they can do that, it's very confusing. Most women can only have a subjective personal discussion about something, even if they think they're having it objectively. They'll say, I want to talk about women with you guys too, but most of them aren't. They're not talking about herself as a woman. They want to have a discussion about relationships as her, Karen, in it. It's about me, my subjective experience, my anecdotes. This is my truth. Whereas a man doesn't always place himself first personally. He can appreciate the distal concept of men, or the distal concept of relationships, or the distal concept of women. When a woman enters a conversation, it generally just becomes very proximal, very subjective. It's all about how she feels, how her friend Nancy feels, what she went through, what she feels about men, but it's not actually anchored to objective examples, data, research, biology, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the stuff men in the manosphere and men's self-help tries to talk about, again, not all, there's all different kinds, but when men want to have a sober discussion away from women, it's to take emotion out of it, to make it dry and understandable from a mechanical and structural point of view. But you notice that the other reason it's hard to have a discussion with women about relationships and men and women is because we always have to attend to the women first in these discussions. Their needs, desires, wants, we never get to the men. It's always about women. And let's not forget, virtually all the content, sympathy, articles, news stories, documentaries, everything's always talking about women. And the thing is, we never get to the men because at the end of every female discussion, it always ends with, but there's still a long way to go. And because there's always still a long way to go with women, we never get to men. Women are therefore parasitic in their discussions about relationships. Only they get fed. We continually address women's issues first and foremost, and then we'll say, first women. Just like the term women and children first. But quite conveniently, when you look at the term women and children first, you notice that it doesn't actually say women and children first and then men. Men are not in that phrase. Men are invisible. In fact, because the children are women's property anyway, you might as well just say women only, and that's it. Why do men discuss relationships from a male-only point of view and only tangentially touch on women in relation to their own point of view? Why don't we include women? Because everything out there is talked about from a female-only point of view. 95% of the stuff out there is. So men need to understand these things on their own, away from the intrusion of women. It's fine to have a conversation with women and recognizing that, yeah, sure, women do go through a lot of things themselves. I don't deny that. It's rational. But why do I only touch on the woman's experience and focus on the male's? It's because I, as an individual guy, as an organism, am trying to survive. I'd be interested to know your thoughts, gentlemen. What do you say to people when you talk about the male experience and their comeback is, well, it's not just men, it happens to women too, or what about the women? When you yourself are trying to sincerely convey a male's point of view. Don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Share my videos around and link them around on your social media. Thanks to my patrons who are supporting me each month. I really appreciate it. And to you guys who have given me a PayPal donation this month as well. You guys are the best. It really means a lot. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.